Hello, hello. I am audible.
Yes,
You are audible, sir.
Slides are also visible now. Hello,
yes, sir.
hello.
You are audible and visible.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nandini, for your nice introduction. Good evening to everybody. Now my topic is antiphospholipid syndrome on a case-based discussion. Actually, I will discuss few cases, and on that top of that, I just give some salient points how and when you suspect antiphospholipid syndrome. This is a case one. This is a case one. It is a 27-year female. She has a complaint of fatigue, dizziness, and generalized weakness for the last 4 weeks, and pain over the both lower limbs on brisk walking, which used to get relieved on taking rest for the same duration, and history of some polyarthalgia. He had a significant past year history, a recurrent episode of first trimester pregnancy loss, and a pregnancy loss within 10 weeks, transient loss of vision in the right eye, and history of recurrent episode of ischemic CVA in his young age. She is 27-year-old, and her investigation reports were hemoglobin was very low, 4.6, creatinine was high, 1.5, liver function tests were normal, but APTT is very high, 75.2 seconds, and other thyroid and other serology, particularly hepatitis B, C, HIV, was non-reactive. Urine is a albumin 1 plus, and RBC was plenty. And she had done ultrasonography of the whole abdomen, the normal study, and color Doppler study of the both arterial system and bilateral lower limbs shows normal triphasic pattern with normal color. So there is no evidence of either a venous or arterial thromboembolism at present. On serology, autoimmune serology, seroantibodies or anti-nuclear antibody was positive, and phospholipid antibody panels were both IgG and IgM, and actually this is done anti-phospholipid antibody test, not specific to anti-cardiolipin or anti-beta 2 glycoprotein 1, and these were both as a total. It was the IgG and IgM was present, and CT scan of the brain is showing a ischemic focus was there over the right posterior parietal region. So in a short, it is a case of 27-year young female having a history of recurrent stroke and also fetal loss with a APTT is very high and creatinine is high with a antiphospholipid antibodies were also high, and urine has a protein and also RBC present there. So in this case, you have to think for it features of other thrombosis is there, recurrent thrombosis is there. So it actually this is a case of suspected case of antiphospholipid syndrome, whether it is a primary or secondary. But it has been seen that anti-nuclear antibody was very high. The all other antibodies, ENA, were not done and is not present in my. This was the case in Arjikar, which was presented by one of our PGTs in before, and we have got these type of reports from him, and it has been seen that ANA was positive, antiphospholipid antibodies are positive, APTT was very high. So these are the suggestive of antiphospholipid syndrome. And for these, whether it is a primary or secondary, for the secondary, it is a RBC is highly present here, and also proteinuria is there. There is a increased creatinine level. Now, all are in favor of lupus. So though ANA is and also ANA is positive, so we have to do the investigation of to rather confirm the diagnosis of systemic lupus erythematosus by doing a specific autoantibodies. So the clinical clue is the stroke in the young, fetal loss, dimness of vision, and history suggestive of ANA, a history of ANA positivity, all are suggestive of lupus. So it was a case of a antiphospholipid syndrome in a case of a systemic lupus erythematosus. This is another case, is a 39-year female which was presented with a painful ulceration on the bilateral dorsal of the feet, and that started as a bully 16 weeks prior to her presentation. She had a medical history of 20-year history of rheumatoid arthritis. That's a known case of rheumatoid arthritis, presented with a painful ulceration on the bilateral dorsum of the feet, and no history of deep vein thrombosis or pulmonary embolism or miscarriage. That was were present in the first case. Here it were not present. On examination, initial skin biopsy, it was done performed by the outside dermatologist 8 weeks prior to the presentation showed is a features of vasculitis, and culture was positive for a methicillin resistant sensitive staphylococcus. Probably it is the infective origin. It was infective origin. Because treatment was given with a steroid with a tapering dose, cephalexin, but which did not improve the lower extremity ulceration. That gives a clue that this is not an infective wound because it did not improve with a cephalexin which is sensitive in the staphylococcus, and pain become progressively worse, and that's why presented to a tertiary care center. At the time of presentation of dermatology department, the patient was taking prednisolone, hydroxychloroquine, and other symptomatic. Prior therapy also done by the sulfasalazine, it was failed because she was a known case of rheumatoid arthritis. She was treated with etanercept and methotrexate, but it was discontinued prior due to the side effects. So at the presentation, she was febrile. Her vital signs are stable. On examination, clinical examination, she had a multiple ulcer and erosion on the bilateral dorsum of the feet with a few scattered retiform red purple patches. One bulla were present in the right dorsum of the foot. All the lesions were tender to touch, and edema were present on the bilateral feet. No oral ulceration were present, no focal neuropathies or palpable cord were appreciated in the lower extremities. That means exclude the leprosy and others. There were no other cutaneous abnormalities. This is the picture which shows this is a bulla over the right dorsum and also multiple ulcer in a case of a presence of rheumatoid arthritis. So we have done the laboratory test. WBC count was 9.4, 9,540. Hemoglobin normal, platelet count was normal, ESR and C-reactive protein is not elevated, urine analysis normal. A basic metabolic panel was normal, but blood glucose was high, 185. ANA and dsDNA was normal. Prothrombin time was normal. This is the lupus anticoagulant test for the to know the whether the lupus anticoagulant is present. Dilute vipergenum time negative. Rheumatoid factor were positive. Anti-CCP were moderately elevated, but the cardiolipin antibodies IgG, IgM, IgE all are within normal length. But beta 2 glycoprotein of IgG, IgM antibodies are normal, but beta 2 IgA was elevated. We usually do not do the IgA in beta 2 for the diagnosis of APLA. We commonly do IgG, IgM, but anti-cardiolipin antibody and beta 2 glycoprotein 1 antibody. But you can do IgA, but IgA were done. It also actually it were done previously. That's why it was done. And wound culture was also shown the staphylococcus. She had a slide of two prior punch biopsy obtained from the outside hospital approximately 8 weeks prior to the prior from the right and left dorsum of the foot. Both biopsies of both sides of right and left are histologically similar. Post-capillary venule shows extensive vasculitis or numerous fibrin thrombi with lumen with both biopsy specimens. The biopsy from the right foot showed prominent ulceration of the epidermis with a few of the affected vessels showing minimal accompanying nuclear dust. However, predominant pattern was not that of leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Probably it is maybe of infective or other causes. Biopsy from the left foot shows prominent epidermal necrosis with focal reepithelialization and scattered eosinophils. So pathologists felt that this vasculitis secondary to coagulopathy was most likely either that of a drug reaction or rheumatoid vasculitis would be the other entities to consider in the differential. So they thought it is due to some coagulopathy of the vessels, and that's why it is not, it is act as a non-healing ulcer. So rheumatoid arthritis with the non-healing ulcer gives the clue that it may be case of antiphospholipid syndrome. So approx 12 weeks prior to the presentation, we actually searched for this previous report. Previous report was IgM was normal, IgG is elevated and IgA was elevated. Both anti-cardiolipin and beta 2 glycoprotein and all are elevated in the outside the 12 weeks previous. So for the clinical for this clinical suspicion, a thrombotic event in the dorsum of the foot, and also which was confirmed histologically and persistently positive, which is the 12 weeks before it was positive, and even now it is also positive. So if the autoantibodies, particularly anti-cardiolipin antibody and also beta 2 globulin antibody is positive in two occasions 12 weeks apart, and this is a suggestive of rather a diagnostic of antiphospholipid syndrome, and that helps in the diagnosis of antiphospholipid syndrome in the setting of rheumatoid arthritis. So this is a case of secondary APLA in a case of a RA. That is most important. So when the patient of RA coming with this type of ulcer, think of that it may be a case of this case was treated with a steroid and also some and heparin, enoxaparin, and also oral warfarin was started and oral doxycycline. And after getting the treatment, patient was improved by 7 days, and she was continued with the penicillin, hydroxychloroquine, warfarin as an outpatient department. There was no recurrence of lesion, and she is having a 3 years follow-up with this regime. This is my second case. This is the third case, 36-year-old female admitted in the hospital after being found in the bathtub with a decreased responsiveness and profound weakness. There was no history of medical problems in the before. She had a history of frequent headache and blurry vision for last 1 month. Laboratory examination revealed WBC count was high and hemoglobin was normal and platelet count is low. There is a thrombocytopenia. Patient renal function was altered and presenting with a anion gap metabolic acidosis, probably maybe is suspected starvation ketosis and also respiratory alkalosis. Patient was admitted in the intensive care unit and close monitoring and blood pressure control was there. Creatinine was very high and prothrombin time was normal, but APTT is also normal. Fibrinogen is just slightly mild higher. A CT of the brain was performed and numerous hypodensities in the frontal and parietal white matter suggestive of focal ischemic changes. Patient was admitted in the intensive care for the close monitoring that I have already told you, and ultimately the patient was treated with a new drug, eculizumab therapy, and was started, and he was rather a suspected a case of a CAPS. So these are the MRI of the brain on the presentation and MRI of the brain 5 months after the presentation. They have been improved with that therapy. So this is a clinical presentation of a CAPS. CAPS means catastrophic antiphospholipid syndrome. This is a very much emergency presentation with all other, is presented with a stroke, multiple stroke. So after the diagnosis with the other clinical suspicion and diagnosis, patient was treated with a case of a eculizumab. It is a decent drug for this promising recovery with a known fatal disease. And patient after getting this treatment, she has been improved. So this is a one case report. Actually, I have taken as a from from other states as a case report, published as a case report, and this is a case report of CAPS, catastrophic antiphospholipid syndrome. So catastrophic antiphospholipid syndrome treated with eculizumab is an inhibitor of C5 and arrests the complement cascade, and thus it improves this patient. So this is another patient. Case 4 is an 83-year-old woman suddenly developed left-sided faciobrachial weakness with a numbness more than 6 hours before admission. She was afebrile, blood pressure was 157 by 86, her heart was normal, regular. She had a history of smoking, hypertension and dyslipidemia. Past history is a lacunar stroke, mesenteric ischemia 13 and 2 years before ago respectively. No history of spontaneous abortion or pulmonary embolism in the past. History of recurrent deep vein thrombosis over the age of 70 years. She had a history of recurrent venous thrombosis after the age of 70. She is 83-year-old. Now, no recent history of vaccine administration or history of malignancy. Routine blood tests were normal. The blood cholesterol level just high. LDL is high, 152. CRP is normal. These antiphospholipid positivity is a positive lupus anticoagulant. Anti-cardiolipin antibody are also positive, and anti-beta 2 glycoprotein are also positive. Both are positive. All three of the clinical, diagnostic clue of antiphospholipid were positive. The patient received a combined therapy of aspirin plus warfarin with a international INR target between 2 to 3, and after 18 months of follow-up, she had no recurrence of thrombotic event and not detected a malignancy. So this is a case of late onset of primary antiphospholipid syndrome, like a late onset rheumatoid arthritis is present also. there. So in a elderly patient, if may present with a stroke or stroke like presentation, so you have to think for antiphospholipid syndrome. So recurrent thrombotic events beyond the age of 70 in presence of persistent circulating APL antibodies. So that gives a clue. Secondary causes of APS include infection, malignancy, or autoimmune diseases, and vaccines are also to be ruled out. Here all are absent. Stroke represents one of the most frequent neurological manifestations of antiphospholipid syndrome. I have seen all four cases having a stroke-like presentation. So in a case of stroke, you have to have a suspicion or clinical eye to exclude the antiphospholipid syndrome. A history of recurrent deep venous thrombosis and mesenteric ischemia in the past provides clue for the prothrombotic state. So in conclusion, it is important to consider testing APLA antibodies among the older patients, particularly when at the first recurrence of cryptogenic stroke. If there is a history of recurrent stroke, so you have to do a antiphospholipid antibody test, particularly in those with a history of venous thromboembolism. In case of elderly patient without any precipitating factors like infection, stasis, etc., if stroke, then you have to search for. In a non-compliant patient and a patient of taking aspirin or clopidogrel, but history of recurrent history of ischemic stroke, you may be think of that may be case of antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. Then you have to search for that patient which is having a taking a prophylactic drug or who is a non-compliant patient. You have to do the APL test. So antiphospholipid syndrome is a thrombosis in a wrong places. So it is an autoimmune disorder which manifests clinically as a recurrent arterial and venous thrombosis and or fetal loss. Characteristically, you have to lab abnormality exists as antibodies direct against the membrane anionic phospholipids, anti-cardiolipin and anti-phosphatidylserine, or their associated plasma protein beta 2 glycoprotein 1. It is also known as a Hughes syndrome, antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, or APLA, lupus anticoagulant syndrome. It is commonly associated with the autoimmune disease like collagen vascular disease and associated with other commonly SLE and responsible for the frequent miscarriage in the young female. So there is a three types: primary antiphospholipid syndrome, secondary antiphospholipid syndrome is associated with other autoimmune like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, systemic sclerosis, mixed connective tissue disorder, inflammatory myositis, systemic vasculitis, Sjogren. You have to search for if there is any chance of a history of recurrent thrombosis like a venous thrombosis. I have already told you another is a catastrophic antiphospholipid syndrome is a rapid organ failure due to generalized thrombosis. This term is caps with there is a chance of high risk of death. There is also entity of seronegative antiphospholipid syndrome, but you have to have a clinical, you have to suspect these cases when the clinical manifestation of APLA is present, but negative antiphospholipid report. But you have to search for the other trigger factor apart from the autoimmune diseases like infection, syphilis, hepatitis C, HIV, malaria, other drugs and other also genetic predispositions are also there. So in that cases, you have to search for whether they are associated. So these are the diagnostic clue. I have already told you that anti-cardiolipin antibody, lupus anticoagulant, and anti-beta 1, beta 2 glycoprotein 1 antibodies that you have to usually we done this test by the ELISA test, and lupus anticoagulant you can do by the antiphospholipid APTT. If the APTT is very high, you can suspect there is a lupus anticoagulant is there, or is a Russell Viper time coagulation test. So The laboratory criteria is a lupus anticoagulant, anti-cardiolipin antibody, and or anti-beta-2 glycoprotein antibodies are present in a high titer within on 2 occasions 12 weeks occur. So these are the thrombotic manifestation. That is the most common presentation, either arterial or venous. Either arterial is usually present as a stroke, digital gangrene, renal artery occlusion, mesenteric infarct, coronary artery thrombosis, renal artery thrombosis, or it may be present with a deep venous thrombosis in the legs, pulmonary thrombosis, mesenteric portal hypertension, and cortical vein and central venous thrombosis, which may present as a stroke-like presentation. So clinical manifestation is a very vast. It may affect all the systems, but common presentation is a DVT, thrombocytopenia, livedo reticularis, stroke, superficial thrombophlebitis, pulmonary embolism, fetal loss, and transient ischemic attack. This is the very much common clinical manifestation. But when a patient, physician should suspect this is a case of antiphospholipid syndrome, when arterial thrombosis occurs below 50 years of age, venous thrombosis if unprovoked and less than in a young age, recurrent thrombotic events, both arterial and venous thrombosis, thrombosis in an uncommon site like a renal, hepatic, retinal, and subclavian, recurrent fetal loss in a young stroke in any patient of recurrent stroke. In a nutshell, only when one or more otherwise unexplained venous or arterial thrombotic events in the young, that is the main clue. That is either venous or arterial thrombotic events is present, or before 10 weeks or after 10 weeks, there is a premature labor, preeclampsia, placental insufficiency, and fetal death after 10 weeks, or recurrent multiple embryonic loss below 10 weeks. That all these two is the most important suspicion for a clinician to diagnose of APLA. That is, I have already told you that there is a other non associated with a non autoimmune disease. First is the infection. Now, very recently, the COVID-19 infection. We are getting many cases of thrombotic events. Even we have lost many doctors also just after a post-COVID follow-up patient, as a they have a recurrent attack, attack of coronary thrombosis or other pulmonary thrombosis or like that. So this is a secondary AFLA due to a COVID-19. So in these cases, you have to have give a, if the patient is associated with a other coronary risk factors or other dyslipidemia or atherosclerosis, you should give a both, warfarin or anticoagulant, and also the aspirin. Both should be given, and you should be cautious about the bleeding risk. But you have to, treat with the both when the D-dimer is very high in a discharged patient or post-COVID follow-up patient. Also, malignant associated APLA is there, drug-induced APLA is there. So these are the all in nutshell when the patient, when the physician should suspect. And I have already given these all clinical cases. This is my book, Anti-Phospholipid Monograph, which actually with Parashar and Rudrajit. We have edited this book and collecting the different chapters from the different, renowned rheumatologists and also neurologists and others. I think these books will be helpful to you. You can collect it from IPCA Activa. So thank you all for listening to my lecture.